I guess online here is a Vindicator business reporter, Carl Hinkle, and so let's really kind of just break this down because I know just the terms, fracking and injection wells, and you outlined that in your article today in the Vindicator. So if you could just maybe just outline, just like you did in your article today, as far as what is this hydraulic fracture drilling or fracking, and how injection wells kind of is on the tail end of that.
Yes. Uh, Fracking is a process that uh, has been around for many, many decades. It's essentially drilling for natural gas and oil. To think of it in simple terms, the same kind of drilling that you and I would do to put together a kitchen table or any other piece of furniture in our house, that's kind of the way that fracking always was. They go straight into the ground and they'd be able to tap into natural gas and oil. Well, a few years ago, they developed a technology that allows them to go, straight down into the ground vertically, but now they can also drill horizontally. So they go down and then they go out. And this allows them to unlock even more natural gas and oil that had previously been untapped. Um, Now, of course, when you talk about drilling, there are fears of contamination, and more so now in the fact that we're in a regular well, you would know where they drilled. It would be straight down. Now you can't really see where they're drilling, from above the ground, which has many people scared. Now, for the fracking process to work, at least horizontally, they need to use water or salty, chemical-laced, um, what could be described as brine. They need about 4 million barrels of this salty chemical liquid to break open shale rocks thousands of feet below the ground. And when they're done with that water, about 20% of it resurfaces, and it needs to be disposed of. It's got too many chemicals, too much salt, too much sand to dump into rivers and streams. It will quickly contaminate drinking water. So they need to dispose of it somehow, and that is where the injection well comes in, which is essentially kind of like a regular vertical well, except they're not extracting gas or oil. They're putting this brine and injecting it back into the ground.
So they're taking this I guess byproduct and the injection well part, and they have to find some way to dispose of it. So that is where. So from what I understand, then like an injection well is something that is built, and that is something that this byproduct is placed in. Is it thousands of feet below the ground as well?
Yeah, and for perspective as well, when they're drilling in the Utica and the Marcellus Shale here in Ohio and in Pennsylvania and possibly New York, that's about anywhere from 4 to 6,000 feet below the ground, at least in our area. The injection wells can vary. Some of them are as shallow as 1,500 feet, some as deep as 9,300 feet. So it all depends. And in the story in today's Vindicator, um, these new kind of super wells go deep, 9,300 feet deep, and allow much more of this brine to be disposed of as opposed to a well that's maybe only a few thousand feet deep.
Now, this new process that you're talking about, are you talking about a new fracking process or a new injection well process or both?
Well, it's a little bit of both. First of all, the new or newer aspect of the fracking is the ability to drill horizontally.
Okay.
And with the injection wells, it's not necessarily new, but it's new to this area and new for this, I guess, drilling frenzy or drilling boom. In that there are going to be so many wells that need to be fracked, which means there's going to be so much water that needs to be, mixed with chemicals and sand, and therefore creates a bigger need to dispose of that fluid once they are done fracking, which led to these deeper injection wells, which just allow a much greater volume of brine to be injected into the ground.
Now, so correct me if I'm wrong here. So with these deeper and kind of different type of injection wells, um, that it depends on what type of rock is in there that they are injecting down to. Because I'm getting to the earthquake question.
Mhm.
So because that's kind of where a lot of this is where the information or misinformation is going on, and just in my own reading, is that when this material is injected into the ground in these injection wells, it really depends on the type of rock that it goes to or goes under, or can you clarify that a little bit for me?
Yeah. Well, for instance, you wouldn't want to inject uh, this brine into a shale rock formation like the Utica or the Marcellus. That's the one you want to frack in order to unlock natural gas and oil. You need to find a permeable rock formation, which easily can accept the brine when it is pumped into the ground, and therefore the water will be able to permeate. The brine, excuse me, will be able to permeate, and the well can accept more and more of it. Um, so really, there are a few underground formations that are target zones. If anybody's familiar with the Clinton sandstone, that is a sandstone. It's very permeable, as is the Mount Simon, which is also permeable, also a sandstone. So yeah, they're looking for um, formations, kind of sandy or permeable underground formations to inject this brine, as opposed to rock formations.
So, and just to let the people know, outside of this local area here, there have been some low grade tremors or earthquakes on the order of, I think, a 2 magnitude and 3 magnitude over the past, I would say, I don't know, 12 months or so, the past year or so. And things really came to a head on New Year's Eve when the 4 point magnitude earthquake happened. And just listening to the discussions and the debate following that, from what I understand, where that well is that it is that injection well. The material was injected into a well that is uh, uh, where the rock was not as permeable, and that is what kind of set off that seismic reaction. Is it? Do I have that right?
Yeah, yeah. Essentially, the target formation in this instance was the Mount Simon sandstone, which is the layer directly above the bedrock. And when you think of the bedrock, think of a granite countertop. You really can't force water into a countertop; it will just kind of splash aside. So when the brine is getting in between those two layers, it acts as a lubricant, and now these layers, which under the normal force of gravity, aren't really going to move, now have the possibility to move, especially if there's a fault line, many millions, if not billions of years old, that has previously went undiscovered.
So that's kind of my
If you want to think about it this way too, if the Mount Simon is a sponge, and you set the sponge on top of a granite countertop, you're really not going to be able to move it very easily. But should you put some fluid in between the sponge and the granite countertop, you're more easily able to slide that sponge across the countertop.
hmm hmm So what I've been understanding in the aftermath of New Year's Eve was that it's that specific well that is the problem, because there are, from what I understand, hundreds of these injection wells throughout the state of Ohio. Is that right?
Yeah, there are 176 in operation now, and they've been around for many, many years. It's kind of a circumstantial thing in that all these other wells have been injecting into the correct formation. It could have been human error. It could have just been a mistake in the permitting process. And quite frankly, I don't know if anybody really expected this, because at the time of the first earthquake, March 17th, we actually had two that day. People were trying to figure out, as we got number two, number three, number four, number five, what is going on here? What are the potential triggers for these earthquakes? And for those who are familiar with the area, We considered the dump that's there. We asked around to see if that could cause anything. Obviously, a lot of activity with the mills going on, but it really goes back to one particular resident, Mike Costarella, who, on his own accord, started plotting the epicenters of these earthquakes and quickly found that they were surrounding this injection well, which it kind of flew under the radar. It went in, it was permitted in 2010, but not many people talked about it, and this was kind of before I got down to Youngstown, and when he pointed it out, it all kind of added up pretty quickly, and that's where we're at today.
And just to let people know, today, locally here, the politicians are having a field day here, and they're really trying to push back and to have more study, which I don't disagree with. But I know the Vindicator has been covering a lot of stories, and all the local media here has been covering a lot of stories on that, and the whole political angle is interesting as well.